So working with sellers, pro tip, because you know me, you know I love a good pro tip. You want to become a professional on every home you list to the point where whereas if you were selling your own home. Think about that for a second, guys. Think about that for a second. As if you were selling your own home. That's the type of professional that you want to be. Just like when you're working with the buyer, you want to understand your client's needs. Well, look at it this way when you're working with the seller. You want to understand that home. What makes that home tick? Why did the seller purchase this home? And I'm talking about traditional resale, guys. I'm not talking about new construction. I'm not talking about working with investors. But even then, understand the home. Understand the property. That's a pro tip. Table of content. Yes, I know. Content. Because that's what this is, guys. It's content at the end of the day. And you should be creating content every single day when it comes down to your business. But we're going to break down the main functions of working with sellers, because we do have very experienced agents on this call too who head our organization. You are going to create your own version of this. Whether Dan has input, Sean has input, Shalay has input, right? Maria Lauren has input. And they will, and they can add that. But I am baselining this. At the end of the day, it is up to you to create your own business. Take the best practices from people who have done it, right? But ultimately create your own. We're going to talk about the listing presentation today, marketing and pricing, and contracts to close in somewhat of a specific order. When I was coming up in the business, we had a 1 or a 2-step presentation, listing presentation, kind of similar to a buyer presentation when I talk about doing a consultation prior to taking a buyer out, right? I don't necessarily just want to jump into something blind. Why? Because I want to protect my time. My time is my most valuable asset. Pro tip number 2, make sure, please, that all decision makers are present at all times. Trust me when I tell you, both decision makers need to be present. Confirm with your state brokers if you need both to sign the listing agreement. In the state of New Jersey, only one has to sign the listing agreement. However, both or multiple have to sign the contract, okay? So confirm what decision maker. You know how you alleviate this, guys? Have all the decision makers there. Have them all sign everything. Makes life easier. But I want to talk about the 1-step or the 2-step. Geez, I don't care if you have 5 steps. Whatever makes you comfortable. But this is the way that I articulate it. Your 1-step. Set the appointment, show up, ask questions, get the listing. You're just going to do everything at once. The 2-step, very similar to that buyer consultation that you know I love having, and I love talking about it. And mine is sometimes a 3-step. I have a follow-up consultation with the buyer today at 2:30 after already having an initial consultation. And then we're going to talk even more the first time we actually go out and see homes. I digress. The point is, create as many steps as you need, whatever makes you comfortable. But in my 2-step, prior to even stepping foot in that home, I am on the phone with the owner/owners. I want to know everything about that home before I step foot in the door. Why? Well, let's think about this. There's a couple ways to do this. But if I can gather as much information about that property, I can start working on not a presentation when I get there, but on my comparative market analysis. Not just how many beds and baths, the prerequisites, but that'll help for sure, right? Beds, baths, square footage, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right? Dear owners, what have you updated in that home? Before I even get out there, I'm just going to ask you a few driving questions because I really want to understand the property. This is going to help me prepare my numbers before we meet for the first time. And that's what I'm doing. I'm asking, do you have solar? Is your basement finished? Have you ever had any issues or insurance claims? Roof, water damage, fire damage. Setting expectations also. I want to make sure that, both you and your spouse are there when I do arrive. So I have all parties ready to sign the listing agreement, right? Or things of that nature, making sure everybody's there. Hey, do you have a survey on hand? Hey, do you have your previous title work on hand? Things that I can do to verify not only who they are, but some more information on that property. And again, if I can gather a lot of information, I can go into blindly, so to speak, into the actual appointment and have some hard numbers, right, in my head. And we're going to talk about numbers a little later on. And then obviously the second step would be then set the appointment, show up, ask more questions, and get your listing. Okay. So you're in the door. Now what? I love this. I call it the tour and rapport. So you ring the doorbell, you walk through the door, you introduce yourself, and now you politely ask for a tour of the property. This is one of the first things that you should be doing. It gives you a chance to not only understand the property and articulate to the owner that I really want to become a professional on your home. I'd love a detailed tour, and please don't hesitate to point out your favorite features of the home or reasons why you even made the purchase in the first place, right? Just start to understand them. If I walk through a home, okay, and I see an Eagles Super Bowl poster on the wall, I know I'm just going to connect with them instantly, right? I guess that's what I want to do. I'm human. They're human too. I want to find reasons to connect. I don't want to just be cutthroat. That's not my approach. I want to build the rapport, right? I want to understand upgrades or repairs that maybe they wanted to make, but they couldn't, right? So you really get a really solid understanding about that home. And again, you want to connect on a personal yet professional level with your client. So that's your job. You get through that door, you're taking your tour, and you're connecting, right? You're moving around. It's not that awkward. You go straight to the table, you're sitting down, and you're trying to upsell yourself. You save the table for the end of the tour to break down your comparative market analysis, right? That's what you save that for. You tour, you build rapport, you price. So you've gained a better understanding about the property. You ask to have a seat with your client. Hey, can I ask anybody a question? Feel free to answer. When you are sitting down with a client, you have the listing agreement right on the table. What else should you have with that listing agreement at all times? Right on top of that listing agreement. And as you are explaining that listing agreement, your price, your comparative market analysis, what should be there as well? Can anybody guess?
Consent to dual agency?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. That'll be there. Anything else?
Seller's disclosure?
Yeah, they're going to need to complete that. That's right. That's part of the listing package. But what you guys should have is on top, you ready? On top of your CIS, your dual consent, your listing agreement, the property condition disclosure, the lead-based paint, if it applies, you should have a pen, guys. There should be a pen on the paperwork. Subconsciously, that client is going to pick up that pen. They're not going to sign anything, but they're going to pick it up without even knowing, and they're going to start preparing themselves mentally to start signing. Put the pen on the paper, okay? But yes, you will need all those documents as well. So very good points, including your CMA, because you're trying to price out this property. Now, Sean has tools for rapid CMAs. Dan has tools for CMAs. We have lenders with tools for CMAs. I am going to do a generic call using Bright MLS, which is not going to touch everybody in our organization, one of these upcoming weeks on how to prepare a comparative market analysis. But you should know there are trainings in the world. There are trainings with your state brokers on how to put together a comparative market analysis. But whatever you do, when you're coming up with pricing, because the seller has a price in their head, I love my home. I know what my home is worth, but do you? Do you know what your home is worth? Because right here in my CMA, I have support showing what I believe your home should be valued at. Sean, you raised. I'm so happy I saw that Sean raised his hand, and I can't even see it, but it popped up on my screen. Sean.
Yeah, I just wanted to say another thing that I found useful is knowing what the Zestimate is, because the potential seller client has already looked at that, and you need to be prepared to know how your CMA analysis compares and to be able to answer their questions. I can guarantee you they're going to say, well, Zillow says my house is worth more, or Zillow says my house is worth less, or this is exactly what Zillow came up with. So just be prepared to answer those questions and overcome those objections.
I love that. You guys, you know what one of my favorite lines is? When a client, and not in a sarcastic way per se, but in a brutally honest way. When a client doesn't like, I know Sean's gonna have the answer to this, but when a client tells me, well, Zillow says, if you're starting what Zillow says, does anybody want to
Please let me do it.
Go ahead.
I always say, did you know that in the last couple of years, Zillow leveraged billions of dollars to buy properties using their estimates and almost bankrupted their company?
I love that.
They're no longer buying properties using their estimates. Their shareholders are furious, and they almost lost their entire executive suite of corporate partners because of this choice. This is a computer algorithm. Has Zillow been inside of your house?
There it is. There it is, folks.
I know that Alexa is listening and Facebook is using your camera, but they didn't get to see your towel racks. They didn't I'm telling you that I've walked buyers through this neighborhood, and this is what my professional opinion is of this. Zillow is incentivized to make it look like your house is worth more because you're more likely to click their button, which is then going to steal your information and then send it through. They're going to sell that to realtors all over the country that want to contact you.
Just beautifully. I'm smiling ear to ear because that's exactly the truth. It's BS numbers that they tried to literally purchase homes using with an algorithm that's never stepped foot into your home, that's almost bankrupted the company. They no longer buy and sell homes. Very select markets, very few homes. They still have a few homes on the books. I'm sure of. I'm not 100%, but long story short, Sean's exactly right. Right. So when they're hitting you with what Zillow says, it's not what Zillow says. Zillow's not here in your home today. I am. Right? And I'm showing you solid markets, right? Analysis, showing you the comparables, showing you the support, that baseline support that I have. Keep in mind, and we're going to talk about this later on, I want you to have 3 prices in your head before you ever step foot into a home. Okay. We'll talk about that later. But again, you want to be able to express, you want to have that reasoning behind your opinion on price. And that's why the market analysis is so important. Now, guys, I understand maybe you're going to list your mother's home, your sister's home, your brother's home. You still need a CMA. And I'm going to tell you why. Not because EXP wants you to upload a copy of it into SkySlope, but here's one thing that they don't tell you. Okay. The real estate commission, when you are being sued by a seller because your professional opinion on price was XYZ, when they believe that it should have been ABC, but they felt, basically stronghold into listing at your price and selling at your price. Meanwhile, now they're trying to sue you and they're filing a complaint with the real estate commission because, again, they believe it was worth more. You know what the real estate commission is going to ask you for? Not the checklist in SkySlope, but the real estate commission is going to ask you for that comparative market analysis. How did you come up with a price on this home? And you know what's not going to suffice? Oh, that's just what the market was bearing. And you know what happens when you're able to show them how you came up with your professional opinion on price? Because we aren't licensed appraisers. We are licensed real estate professionals. Well, when you're able to furnish that, you're literally in the clear. So long as there's no gross negligence behind it, there's somewhat, legitimate support there, or at least you could show that you did the due diligence. Okay. So pricing, understand pricing. And again, there's a ton of resources to get trained on comparative market analysis. And we'll do one in the future.
What was I gonna say? The Canva has one that I use, and it does take work. You have to like plug in all the numbers, but it's really easy for the client to read. And then it's very apparent, especially when they have a way higher number than what you think, because you're like, all right, well, look across these 3 houses that I pulled that recently just sold. This is the square footage. These are the bedrooms, everything. And then like, how does your house compare?
Oh, I love that. You mean like just like a template for market analysis?
Yes, it's a template, but it takes work because you have to like go grab a picture, but it like visually, it's really easy for the client. So I take the time to do it and I just pull everything from the MLS, but like they can look across and see 3 different pictures of 3 different homes, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, square footage, how much each sold for, and how many days on the market.
Yeah, I love that. Most MLSs will have a 3 up, 3 down. I know Flex, Merle, I think Flex does. I'm pretty sure Flex does. I know Bright does. And something that I also like to do, guys, to Maria Lauren's point, I call her Merle. Don't judge me. That's her name to me. What I like to do is I like to mark up my CMAs. So fancy, I get it, but I'll take my CMA and I'll draw, I'll write, I'll circle, I'll highlight all over it, just because there's a lot of information, but I kind of want to point out what's important and how I got to my decisions. But whatever it takes to make it more understandable for your client, easier to read. I know marking it up as much as I do probably isn't, but I change my colors sometimes, right? I'm circling things. I want them to see what I want them to see. Okay. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, Canva, they have some of the greatest templates out there. If you guys aren't using Canva already to help market your business, please go download the free version. Go sign up for the free version. It is excellent. I will do one on Canva in the future for sure too. But tour rapport price, sign. Okay. If you can, get everything signed that day. Dan will tell you. When people are hot, they're hot. The coach will tell you, if you can get them to sign, to click that day, do it. Because the odds are you don't get that listing agreement signed that day, there's a chance you don't get it at all. It makes sense, guys?
Yeah, I got a quick question, Michelangelo.
Of course.
So what do you do with a client that, despite your proof and your CMA and your professional opinion, that just insists that you list it at what they believe it's valued at? And is not willing to budge.
I love this question. It is going to be highly opinionated, the answer. I would love oh my goodness, I would love Maria Lauren to answer this question, because she just had a fascinating experience with something like this. If she's willing to share.
Yeah, I would say just
because this is Guttenberg to a T almost.
Yeah. I had clients, they swore that their house was worth way more than what it was worth. We did the CMA. I listed it a little bit above what I believe, but still, I feel like realistic. And we ended up getting an offer 10 grand under, which at the end of the day was pretty spot on. And they didn't want to go through with it. And their family told them that it's worth more. And I just had to politely say, you know what, you're not ready then to sell it, because this is what the market is telling us that it's worth. So, if you want to, say politely, like, okay, I disagree with that professionally. And when you're ready to list it, then come back to them, but basically don't waste your time. Don't list it. Just walk away, but leave the door open.
Leave the door open, right? Because somebody might be willing to come in there and tell them, hey, I'll list it for that price. Absolutely. For the exposure. You want brand exposure. Guys, this is not a game. We are here to do a job. We only get paid if we sell that home. Sean, I know you had your hand raised too. I know this is a hot topic. Great question, Shalek.
Yeah, one of the things that we teach in my mentor class is the triangle theory. So when you're talking to a seller, it is very important that you establish that you are on their side. So when you provide your CMA price, they say, "Well, I think it's worth 30,000 more." You can say, "You know what? I think you're right. I think it's worth way more. The price on that sheet is the price I think the market will bear currently." And it's not you versus them, it's you and the client versus the market. Blame the market, because otherwise you become the victim. The client is going to go, "This shitty realtor just thinks my house isn't worth anything." All of those things are going to happen. All the negative connotations are going to be hanging around your neck. Say, "I think your house is worth even more than what you think." But because of interest rates, that's the enemy. Because of the current market status, that's the enemy. Because your idiot neighbor listed their house even lower, that's the enemy. We got to fight those enemies together. And the way we do that is we make an informed decision on what to list your house at. I am happy to list it above this price only if you agree to think about, talk about, and make a plan for what happens when it doesn't sell. So what happens if I list it at 250, which you think it's worth, and I think it should be worth? What happens if we get an offer at 220, which is what I think it's worth? Are you going to be willing to entertain that offer? Because if not, then I'm not sure this is a good idea to list right now. Maybe we wait. So
Bravo.
I think it's really important to make you as the teammate and the market the enemy, the buyer the enemy, because you got to show that you are the professional there to assist. You don't want to get into an argument about how, I painted my daughter's room royal purple because we're royalty. We're derived from royalty. There's no way royalty is not going to sell their house for less than $300,000. Were you crazy? You don't want that conversation. What you want is to be like, "Yeah, I agree. My house is purple. I'd paint that in a second. Give me the number of the person who painted that." I love that color. But what I'm telling you is that I sold a house not far from here for this price and a similar thing.
I love that. That's
psychology.
That's psychology. It's reverse psychology, and he's absolutely correct. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. Dan, that's brilliant, Sean. Also, Dan, you had your hand raised, Coach.
Yeah. So to piggyback on Sean, I've been in this situation a lot with for sale by owners, because when I broke into the business, I was so hungry that I was going to put, at one time I had 20 listings at Century 21 from calling FSBOs. So I was already going in without the advantage of them, saying, "I want your business, ask for them." But one thing I think that really works with people is, the partnership, like Sean was saying. I'm in this with you. I'm the very best at what I do, but here's the facts. Here's what every appraiser is going to look at. So what you're doing is you're asking me to pull off a miracle, because it's not going to appraise for this price. I'm going to spend my money on a photographer. I'm going to spend money marketing the home, and it may be a waste of time, but I'm the best at what I do. And if there's somebody that can do this for you, it would be me. So that immediately locks them in that, one, I'm really good at my job. I've got the balls to list it 30K over and try to get it. I've established the fact that it's a little crazy and we're going to have to probably try to get a cash buyer. I've gotten them on my side. Sometimes they'll offer to pay for the photos because they don't want me to come out of pocket and then not sell it. And then a lot of times, like, I'm listing open houses and I'm doing open house. I'm getting more buyers, and they're telling our friends, our realtor, is fighting tooth and nail, and it builds my reputation as somebody that can pull off miracles. The majority of the time I've done this, it has really worked out for me, but it was a long battle. There was one on Wood Street that took a year. We started at 350, finally got it done at 280. There was a horse farm with Myrna that started at 490 and sold for 375. I mean, some of these people for sale by owners were crazy, but then she bought her new home with me because I had fought through the fight with her. So the question is, how hungry are you? Do you have the bandwidth to stay in it long haul? And are you willing to do open houses and things to generate income producing, client producing, to make money off the property, even if you don't sell it? So those are the things that you have to judge. Now, listen, now in my career, if you're 100K over, I'm probably walking away. But if you're new in your career, I don't think you ever walk away from an opportunity to build a relationship, to add a client for life, and to strut your stuff. It just depends on where you're at in your business. I'm a big believer that you don't let go of any opportunity to sell a home and build a relationship unless, they're absolutely nuts, which some people are. Love
Yeah.
it. Beautiful.
Well said, coach. And he's absolutely right. And so basically to answer Shalay's question, there's multiple ways. There's multiple ways to, pivot or to, like with Sean, with the psychology, Maria Lauren, it's like, look, we'll try it your way. Ultimately, they did it her way and their way, and it just wasn't enough. So they ended up not accepting the offer, or accepting the offer and never going forward with it. And then with Dan, with coach, it's about building the rapport, the trust, showing how hard he's willing to work. How can you make it work for you? Are you trying to pull away some type of experience from this, right? Are the expectations realistic at all, right? So it's really going to depend. Sean, I know you had your hand raised too, and we'll let Sean get another one in before we move forward to the next slide, but this is a hot topic.
Yeah, I just wanted to add another successful strategy I've used is I'll list it at whatever you want, but only if you agree to a price reduction strategy. So we'll hold it there for 3 weeks. I'll do 6 open houses every Saturday and Sunday. I'll fight hard. I'll market it. I'll do everything. But in 3 weeks, we're dropping the price.
That's a great strategy.
If I see a bunch of showings, then maybe we leave it. But let's look at the data. If we see there's not a lot of showings, if the response is that it's overpriced, that's the market telling us that the enemy, the market, that damn market again, is telling us that it's not going to sell for this price. So let's then have a strategy. And then I set that in stone, like every 2-3 weeks, we're going to drop at this percent or this thousands of dollars. And then we'll let it, and then I'll continue to run these, open houses. Because again, especially for newer realtors, if you've got time to run the open house, you're hopefully going to get some buyer clients on it, some representative buyers.
Right.
You got more things to put on your social media, more proof of concept that you're an act. Oh, got another hot open house. Come see me. I'm going to have snacks. Be playing the latest R&B jams, or come win a gift card to Applebee's if you come first 10 people. All the things you can do to pump up your social media, so then people scroll through. You've got proof of concept.
That's right. And with the gift cards, guys, make sure you're in compliance with your local real estate commission. All right. So on top of that, the one thing I will add to Sean's latest point was, yes, you can, I highly recommend. That's one of my favorite strategies. It's one of the first strategies that I ever learned from one of my first mentors in the business, was to not only discuss that, hey, okay, we'll do it your way, but we'll also do it my way. Let's work together here with the price reductions. Build it into your listing agreement. Have it already spelt out. My favorite saying, when in doubt, spell it out. I will already have per week, if it's a 3-week with a reduction, then it's a 4-week reduction. I will have that spelt out in my listing agreement already. And guess what? I don't have to go back to them, have them sign anything at that point. They've already agreed to it. So now I'm going to shoot them a courtesy text on, week 2 in a day. Hey guys, per our listing agreement, we're going to go ahead and we're going to reduce down to X, right? This way, because again, they'll tell you one thing and they'll do another. So protect yourself, put it in your listing agreement if you can. Moving on. Let's see, where are we at next? Oh, hey, the tour breakdown. Again, so we're going back and forth here, right? So when you're touring the home, I want you guys to understand that this should be used as a tool to point out highlights in the home, as well as an opportunity to adjust for pricing based on improvements in condition. This is why it's so important, because you're going to have 3 prices when you go in there: low, median, and high. Okay. With your CMA, you're going to have a range: low, middle, high, right? High being essentially that turnkey, top of the market, ready to go. That median, that middle price is going to be about average. And then when you really start touring that home and you notice that the condition is just, it's not that it's outdated. I'm talking about condition, not properly maintained, lack of pride in ownership. Then you're going to have that low in your head. And you're going to be able to determine this. And what I like to do is I like to walk through the when we're doing the tour, in my head, I'm thinking about which of those 3 numbers I'm going to, when we sit down at the kitchen table, I'm going to present to them, but I'm circling it on my iPad as we're just walking through the home before we've even sat down at the table, because when we sit down at the table, it's going to look like I've, that's been that way since day one, right? Since, I, not even prior to, like, I'm not going to, you could circle it in front of them too, but it's like I've already made up my decision, right? This is where I feel comfortable based on the condition. But, compliments and questions while you're walking along, right? Be professional, yet be personable. Get to know and truly understand the property as if you were the owner. Remember, it is your responsibility to market the property. So this understanding of the history of the home, repairs made, making sure, guys, this is a big one. You guys are professionals. If it looks like it required a permit, well, is there one on file? That finished basement, is there a permit? Did you have that permitted by any chance? And you'd be surprised how many times it hasn't been. You're trying to make this as easy as humanly possible. Right? Gather all this information. Because odds are, because that certificate of occupancy needs to be pulled for that property. They call it something different in every state, but here in New Jersey, they call it the certificate of occupancy. It's going to have to be issued, right? Unless you know the title company. There's ways around that. But I digress. The point is, if there's unpermitted work or work that's, started off with permits, but they were never closed out, you're going to run into that issue in the future. And if you are aware of that type of issue, that is a material defect. You now have to disclose that. There is no listing in the world that is worth your license. Ask the right questions when you're touring that home. Gather as much history on that property as humanly possible so you can market it to the best of your ability. Right? So again, you can ask some of their favorite features, things that they wish they had an opportunity to change or improve on. And another thing, make sure you're figuring out the motivation if you haven't already during your 2-step. If it's during your 2-step, you're already finding out where they're headed next. But motivation is everything. Are they wasting your time? Maybe. And depending on where you're at in your career, maybe you still list it anyway, knowing that they're probably never going to want to sell it, or they're never going to sell it. Who knows? And there's, again, multiple ways to skin a cat, and you can generate business off of simply having that sign in the yard. So you take advantage of every opportunity. A pro tip, look for signs of previous damage, if any. So let's remember, all material defects must be disclosed. What do I mean by that? Well, if I'm down in the unfinished basement and I see water lines on the foundation block, I'm asking if, one, have you guys ever taken on any water? Oh, no, that's, the block gets wet, which is completely true. Yeah, that's why we dry lock our foundations, right? However, if the basement has been finished and about a foot of the drywall is taken up around the whole entire perimeter, I'm asking the question. So has there been water down here? Have you guys had an issue with water? And if they're looking at me dead in the eye and telling me no, but a foot of the drywall or sheetrock is missing around the perimeter of the basement walls, yeah, yeah, I've been around the block, okay, and we got to be honest with one another. I know you've had water down here, okay, but these are things that you're picking up on the tour. Not just, hey, I love the Eagles too, but being that consummate professional through the process. Pricing breakdown. Remember, you're preparing a proper comparative market analysis. And during a 2-step presentation, you have the opportunity to prepare this information to the best of your ability prior to stepping foot into the subject property by understanding, based off comparable features that you are now privy to from your first discussion, guys. This is why the 2-step is so important. Another 2-step where you're learning all of this, and now you've got to come back a second time because you've got to gather all this information, and you're definitely not getting a listing agreement signed because, well, you're just coming out to meet them, to tour the property. You're going to go back to your home office. You're going to go back to your car. You're going to prepare a CMA, whatever. But if you have an opportunity to do this prior to, Now you can put together a proper CMA to the best of your ability based off the information that you have. But again, you're going to, what they tell you on the phone isn't always the case, is it? So that's why you want to have those 3 numbers in your head. That's a pro tip. It's one of my pro tips. And be able to adjust on the fly. Okay. Make sure to take the proper training on how to put together a CMA. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum on this call already. State Broker, Mentor, or EXP World Training. And obviously here in the colony, we are going to have one in the future for sure. But, don't wait. Don't wait. Go out there and, reach out to a certified mentor or go to one of the State Broker meetings or go to EXP World and understand. Quick basic breakdown. I like a 2-mile radius. I like a history of the last 6 months worth of sold homes. I don't like using personally what's pending. It doesn't really do anything for me because that price can change. It can go up or down. I like actives and just solds. But again, and I like a 2-mile radius and I like a 6-month inventory. That's me. And that was fast, right? But everyone is going to do it a little differently. And there are tools out there. Okay. There are tools out there that can help you put together a CMA within a flash. You snap your fingers, CMA's put together. The problem is those are computer generated. I'm not saying that they aren't great. Okay. I'm old school. I like to put together my own CMA, right? But that's just me. And remember, you want to be able to show support and be able to combat sellers' unreasonable expectations on pricing with the proper report prepared, like Shalay was asking that question. And then Sean, Maria, Lauren, and Dan all had valuable input on, how to overcome and set expectation, overcome objection, and set that expectation. And again, here's that pro tip. Have 3 prices set prior to your appointment. Guys, because you're going to want to adjust on the fly. You just don't want to have that 250,000, then you're scrambling in your head like, oh my goodness, but the condition is horrible, or that 250, but wow, they didn't explain how much work they put into X, Y, and Z, right? So have those 3 prices in your head. I highly recommend it. Low, medium, and high. The process breakdown. Guys, you're sitting at the kitchen table, everything's getting signed, but you need to be explaining the process and the timelines with your client. Sellers should begin to prepare for market. Very important. I put staging in here, but they don't have to, but they should be depersonalizing, right? And you should be scheduling photography. You want to keep things moving. You don't want long breaks, right? Well, let's sign a listing agreement. That could we do photos in 3 weeks from now? Give my house some time. Give me some time to prepare my home. Sure, you could. But what I like to do is I like to even put it a week out. Like, here's the date. This is when we're doing photos. Time is of the essence. You want to apply a little bit of pressure, letting them know that, we're professionals. We work based off timelines. We need to work together. We understand life happens, but I don't want anybody to take advantage, right? Either. So, all right, we'll put, photos out a week from now. Gives you time to complete your seller's property condition disclosure, time to depersonalize, right? Stage your home a little bit, get it market ready. That's what's happening. Make sure there's a clear understanding of the timelines so the property can be shown, guys. A lot of things that people miss. How about their seller schedules? How about the sellers who say, well, I don't want a lockbox, I don't want to sign, or rather, I want to be present for all the showings. Okay. Can we explain to our clients why that's not a good idea? That we should be allowing buyers agents and buyers that opportunity to go in there and tour the property peacefully, to really be able to envision themselves in that property. Understanding if there's pets, right? Do those pets need to be accommodated for? What are the time frames? Are they being unrealistic and only allowing to be shown 2 hours a day? We need to work together. We should be breaking this down with our client right there as they're signing or once they've completed signing. Start scheduling your open houses, okay? First 2 weeks of on market, those are the hottest times to do their open houses. I'm not saying you can't do 1 week, 3 week, 4 week, 5, week 1 and 2, right? And set expectations on future pricing action in the event offers aren't coming in. Again, all of this stuff we've already discussed and we've broken it down. You could build it in. You're going to be able to, this is that point in time, right, Shalay, where possibly you're having that conversation as you're breaking down everything. Maybe they've agreed on price. Maybe they've totally agreed. You guys have come to a consensus, but you're not to be that negative Nancy, but in the event, let's set expectation, right? What are we going to do as far as pricing action in the event offers aren't coming in? Look, don't speak into existence. If you're Maria Lauren, you're not speaking that negative stuff into existence, okay? It's not speaking into existence. It's going to sell. It's going to sell for this price. We're going to be fine. You can leave that part out, guys, if you want. That's completely fine. You are gathering all this information today. You're watching this recording at a later point in time. Maybe you're watching this recording 3 months from now. You're creating your own listing presentation, your own process. This is your business. This is your company. You're going to figure out how to do things your way. We're just making recommendations. And a pro tip, make sure sellers are maintaining a presentable home during your on-market timeline. First impressions are everything. Please articulate to your clients that we want this home to look like the professional photography photos every time someone steps foot in. And I get it. I do. People still need to live their lives. Okay. But you're trying to sell your home. How many times have we shown properties where the buyers are walking through the door and they're like, wow, this is not what the photos look like. Right? Not just because it's a mess, because sometimes these photos are just excellent, but sometimes because it is a mess. It is upside down. You got me through the door. Congratulations. You played me. Make sure that property is literally as close to, right, those photos as humanly possible, because it's the expectation that we have set. Okay. Offer. And I know we're running close, so I'm going to try to blaze through this, guys. Offer, negotiating, and acceptance. Okay. So yeah, it's not necessarily something that you have to discuss right away, but it doesn't hurt, because once an offer, because it is part of the listing process, eventually you're going to get offers. But an offer has come in, terms are negotiated, and we have acceptance. Make sure, same thing when you're working with the buyer, that you're breaking down the contract and the timelines for your client. Make sure in the event an attorney is present, that they review said contract. Okay. You can review the contract with clients, just don't answer legal questions. Stay away from legal questions and only advise on what you know. Make sure deadlines are being met. Repairs, commitment, mortgage commitment, that is, and settlement. And prepare your home for settlement and utility, and address transfer/changes, and confirm the title company is balanced for closing. Do not cancel. Here's a big pro tip, and we've seen this happen way too many times. Do not cancel utilities prior to settlement, please. Please, if you have the seller, give the buyer 2 to 3 extra days. I don't care if it costs them an extra $15. And then they're 3 days after settlement, not weekends included, guys, right? But 3 business days later, and they still haven't transferred utilities. The buyer hasn't transferred utilities into their name. Reach out to your agent, or reach out to the buyer's agent. Give them one more courtesy that they do it that day. Then if your sellers want to go ahead and terminate and cancel, let them cancel. Okay. It's not a free for all. But outside of that, this process is kind of where we're linking up with the buyer. Now we're connecting all over again. And if you're working with buyers and you're working with sellers, it kind of goes hand in hand, because we're negotiating terms. We're talking about the contract. We're breaking everything down together, right? Want that to make sense for everybody. But really, the first part of this presentation of this training was really about getting that listing, building that rapport, and setting expectation from day one. But obviously, you're going to be negotiating terms and explaining and breaking down timelines according to the contract with your seller as well. It's very, very important. And now you've completed working with sellers. Make your calls and set your appointments.